Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Incessantly Seeking. Today we have here our returning guest, Adriana Bucci from Let's Get Your Shift Together. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, Luciana. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Of course, today we're talking about escaping twin flames. And I've been hearing a lot about that. There's two different series, one on Amazon and one on, I think it's Netflix.
Mhm.
And wow, I'm just blown away. I remember that story from the podcast Twin Flames. Did you ever listen to that podcast?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it was so shocking that I couldn't even get through it. I'm a big fan of Something Was Wrong, and I thought it would be on the same veins, but it was so destructive to these people's lives. I couldn't even get through it.
It's a
But
disaster.
yeah, here we are. Like Adriana is our narcissist specialist, and I feel like there's a lot to unpack when it comes to the leaders of that group. So let's start there.
Sure. I mean, the fact that he thinks he's Jesus, there, that, yeah, like, I don't even have words.
And I also have to point out is like the just generic version of Jesus, the white guy with the long hair, which we all kind of now in this day and age argue about what Jesus would even look like if he was a Middle Eastern man. So, a Jew and all that stuff. So it's interesting for me to even watch him do that. I'm like, whoa. But brings us back to the whole point of that cult, which is kind of like a retrocess. They really do a lot of like gender role things.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, like, oh my God, there's so much I can say about that. Like, just even forcing people to change their gender. Like, that's just, there's so much crazy shit in that whole thing. And like just the idea, like anytime I hear like a coach or healer or like whatever say like divine feminine or divine masculine, like that's already like a big red flag to me.
Thank you for saying that because in LA, there's, I think, a new wave of that. And I'm hearing a lot about the feminine energy versus the masculine energy. I was one time we were doing a vision board. This was actually a year ago now with a friend of a friend. It was kind of a group of women. And this girl said something of the sorts of like, oh, I'm so tired of this masculine energy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, thinking, planning, organizing. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Did you just say thinking is a masculine energy? Like, I was so confused. This woman calls herself a life coach.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Wow. Like just regular human stuff of thinking, planning, and organizing is something to shame and call it a masculine energy and all that. Like it's just it's mind boggling that like I don't even know what to say. It's just
No,
insane.
but in the actual Escaping Twin Flame series, we see that I've been watching the woman character, right? Let's call them characters because I feel like they can't possibly believe the things that they're saying. So, Shalila,
Shalea,
um,
yep,
yeah, Shalia, like if you watch her, just her facial expressions, you will see that she herself doesn't believe half of the things that he's saying. Like
honestly.
she's like grunting, laughing, switching, like her eyes twitch, she looks away. Like you can really see false safe in her.
Totally. It's and what's funny is that she like came up with all of this pretty much.
But I don't know if you remember what was that show, the Handmaid's Tale, right? The woman who creates this whole universe ends up being punished by the universe she created, and I think we're in the same situation here. If you watch the videos in the beginning, she's really more outspoken and she's basically just repeating everything he says. But at the same time, like by the end, you see him screaming at her and saying things like, oh, I'm not being an asshole right now. This is what discipline looks like. I was like, I'm sorry, what now?
Insane. Wild. Yeah.
So let's talk about the root of that, right? That man, we saw a little bit of his background. Why do you think he ended up in such a narcissistic personality trait or disorder? I mean, we're not here to really like clinicalize him or like label him, but it's pretty clear what's happening. He thinks he's Jesus.
Totally. I honestly I think like, you know, people become narcissists for whatever reason, like whether it's trauma or just never being told no in your childhood or whatever. But I think it's also kind of like the power trip that he's getting from,
Mm.
doing what he's doing, making the money off of it. Like the Netflix one starts off with like him in his Porsche, like kind of bragging about it and how he created this wealth for himself. And it's like, okay, like way to be humble, like it's just so showy and flashy, and like the $15,000 worth of crystals and all that kind of stuff. I
Oh
think,
my God.
yeah, I think he definitely like that, just getting people to buy his courses and join his things and all that kind of stuff. Like just all the different avenues that he has preyed on vulnerable people to spend their money on, in my opinion, garbage that only causes those people who are already damaged more damage. Like there's one thing if you're a life coach and you're actually helping people and actually giving them like the right tools and guidance. But like this, like the mirror exercise and all that kind of stuff, it's just like he's really making these people, like he's getting off on that power where like he's getting these people to like do this crazy shit, like disregard restraining orders, all that kind of stuff. And like, I think he's like playing God, which he's literally and figuratively trying to do.
Let's talk about a bit more about this mirror exercise. I would love to hear your feedback on that because watching that, I'm like, sure, we've all been in therapeutical settings where they say, look within. It's about what's inside. And listening to the members, they actually said that in the beginning was about finding the answers within yourself, and it quickly changed into this, kind of abusive situation. But yeah, let's discuss this mirror exercise a little bit further.
Yeah, so it's basically like, from my understanding of it, like you're basically blaming yourself for everything. There's so much value to looking within and finding the answer within you. Like I absolutely believe that, and the way I approach coaching with my clients is like I can tell you the answer, but until you actually go within and find the answer for yourself, like it's not going to stick. So it's like you do have to do that internal
Hmm.
searching and reflecting, but not in a way where it's blaming you. You do it in a way where it's like you have that breakthrough and things start making sense, and then like you learn for next time. Whereas this mirror exercise, like initially the concept of it looks okay, it doesn't look terrible, but then it's like, if your so-called twin flame put a restraining order on you because you're literally stalking them, and then like you do this mirror exercise to convince yourself that like it's because you're angry with yourself and like you have a restraining order on yourself, like that just, it doesn't make any sense. And I think that people who are already in that vulnerable state where they're already bamboozled by everything that's going on, and they're just like, I don't want to say desperate, but like desperate to find the right person for them. It's like it's so easy to get them wrapped up into this whole concept of twin flames, and do these crazy exercises that cause so much more like damage to them psychologically. It's like, it's really, I don't know, like I think it's like an indoctrination thing where it's like, it beats you down so much, and then you're gonna do that mirror exercise, and then you're gonna be more bamboozled. And then the thing is, when you're feeling bamboozled, the one thing you want is to not feel that way anymore. So you're going to listen to whatever Jeff and Shalia have to say on like what you need to do. And then that gets you like even in like a worse situation. And it's just like a whole shit show. I don't know if that answered your question, but it's just so
Absolutely.
toxic.
And it actually comes up for me, when you were here last time and we talked about how narcissists like to keep you confused because confusion keeps you tethered to them because you're trying to find this clarity. But the more you go to the narcissist for the clarity, more confusion they bring it on because that's the way to manipulate, control. And so with them, it's exactly that. And you see the confusion on their faces through a lot of these videos, which I'm amazed that they actually have. And I'm like, thank God, because it's like if you see their faces, you're just in so much shock, And there's two particular cases that shocked me. The first one was the chemist. Do you remember her, the blonde woman who got into a back accident, like a car accident that broke her back?
Vaguely. Remind me. Refresh
She's
my
the one who
memory.
ended up in jail for a month and
Oh,
like
restraining
doing
orders.
the
Yeah.
mirror exercise. Yeah.
Yeah. yeah, that was,
You know,
oh,
heartbreaking. And her story to me, like, that was really shocking because she was a Stanford chemist. Like, she was brilliant. She wrote music. Like, she had so many amazing gifts. And then she goes through this horrible experience, which obviously you can't control, by getting into a car accident that changed her body and the way that she interacted with life. And then she was looking for something else because the person that was there for her breaks up with her. So that's one thing that I think is really important to bring up, which is how I ended up in a narcissistic relationship as well. Is like, there's always a catalyst. Like, there's always something traumatic that happened in your life that made you more vulnerable to other people's influence. Because if that hadn't happened, like, she wouldn't have not been in a position of like, okay, let me find these people and like believe in this like twin flame universe situation.
totally. Yeah, 100%. She was already vulnerable from being in the accident, being broken up with, and then, searching for whatever she was searching for. It's so easy to get caught up in that kind of stuff. And it's not her fault at all. It's them for being so predatory and, choosing choosing to prey on people who are vulnerable and fuck up their lives even worse. And yeah, I remember that's the one that like her parents paid their life savings, like bailing her out of jail. Like, could you imagine? Like, that it's just so horrible. Like, it's terrible.
And I think it's important, like you said, to bring up that when you are in this mind control state, like, you really can't see out of it. And then the isolation begins. And then all your friends are part of that. And then your whole life surrounds around. I mean, for them, even like their sustenance, like they became these coaches. And that's like, so their entire lives were wrapped up into this lie. So it's like, how do you get out of there without really having a self sense of, and like, I don't know, some kind of identity crisis?
Exactly, exactly. And they break them down so much, and they put themselves on the pedestal, like the leaders of this. So it's like when you're in that vulnerable state and you see this person that's like got the answer for you and is going to help you, you kind of put them on a pedestal and you think that everything they say is correct. And then they start brainwashing them against their families and like people that love them, and their support goes away. And so they really have it's so hard to get out of that mind state when you have no idea and you don't know any better, and you think that these are the people that like you need to be around in order to help you get to that next level in your life that you want to get to. Whereas, like the people that actually care about and love you, they're going to look like assholes when they tell you that like this sounds like a cult, like this doesn't sound good. And it's very much such a convenient thing for the leaders of this to say like, oh well, that means they're toxic, and you need to cut ties with them and all that kind of stuff, when really it's like, no, they were actually trying to help you.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so heartbreaking. And, since we spoke last time, I did a one call with a dating coach class. A friend has been doing this course and I was very curious about it. So I said, sure, I'll have the introductory call. And it was a standard, literally, there was a script call. And I could tell that she was going over the script because there's things that we discussed casually before the call started that she then repeated. And I was like, but we already talked about this. And I don't understand this because I didn't look this person up. I don't know anything about them. And she realized that she thought because I came recommended through a friend, I think she thought the sale was going to be very easy. And so she underestimated the preparation. And by the end of it, it was very predatory. Like there's some, obviously, through this work, some triggers that happen for me that I cannot accept. And one of them was like, if you really were, serious about love and like finding a true love, you would empty your bank account to pay for
Oh my
this.
God.
Yeah.
Wow.
This
Wow.
woman
Okay.
who,
Wow.
yeah, this woman who created this course did that and it worked out for her. I'm like, yeah, because she's now charging everybody $5,000. And then I was like, let's discuss this course. Like, what kind of coaches do we get? Oh, they're very like educated on her line of work on how to help people find true love. And I said, okay, are they therapists? No. Do they have any kind of licenses? No. I was like, all right, so they're just people who worked with her and then they're now coaches and they're supposed to give me advice on my personal life. I don't know if this is really like the kind of peer coaching that I'm interested in doing. She's like, well, it's not exactly peer coaching. They went through the program. And I was like, all right. And the magic word now is neuroplasticity, is like how we're all reparenting ourselves and whatever so we can break out of our traumatic patterns. And she brought that up a bunch of times. I was like, oh, that's so lovely. Do you have a neuropsychologist on your staff? I'd love to hear what the research is behind this. No, no, we don't. So as the call went on, like by the end, I had a scholarship offered to me. I could break it up in like 10 different like payment plans. Like by the end of that, and I knew because she was trying to not get me off the phone, that the moment you get off the phone, when it's a sales pitch, you probably won't buy what they're selling because you realize you don't need it. You think over, what just happened. But in the moment, I could tell her prompting me to, like, I want to hear the emotion in your voice. I want to hear, that you are available to this conversation, all the things. So after that experience, I really understood how those people feel like, because my friend who is doing the course, she was going through a breakup and she was very emotional. So she cried the whole call. On the other hand, I'm in a place that I feel very secure. So I said, I'm curious about this. I actually wanted to record it for the podcast and they said no. And now I know why, because it was just a standard, pitch sales call. Um, but it was really hard to like be on the other end of the line and realize if I was going through a breakup, if I was in an unstable emotional state, I would have